Okay, welcome back, guys. Welcome back to our channel.
Hello.
We have a special guest here again. Sheng actually is from Bitcoin Malaysia. Yeah, we met once in Malaysia before. Nice to meet you here.
Nice to meet you too, Iman. Finally get to see you again. Since the
Yes,
last time, I
exactly.
think you were there in Malaysia, right? It was so nice to see you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, even though right now it's not in person, maybe later on we can catch it up. But before I gotta start with the video, can you share a little bit more about yourself and yeah, how you get into Bitcoin rabbit hole for the first time?
Wow, okay. So my journey with Bitcoin started back in 2016. Yeah. And one of my friends actually asked me for some help. And then he says he can't pay me in fiat, right? And then he says, can I pay you in Bitcoin? And the help that is asking is not very difficult. So I look at this funny money thing. I said, oh, why not? Again. And then at the same time, during that time, Malaysia was also almost going into an election in 2018. So I was a bit worried that because there's a sense there's going to be transition in government in Malaysia. So I was a bit worried that something bad is going to happen. And then I probably need like some gold, some US dollar fiat stacks, right? And also Bitcoin. That's why I kept at it. Yeah, so that's my first experience using of owning Bitcoin. And then after that, I worked in an NFT company back in 2017. Yeah, 2017, 2018, all the way to 2020, 21. And during that time, it was very hard to sell NFT solutions because nobody understands NFT. So I have to call it by a different name, etc. Yeah, and then ever since then, I'm always into the crypto industry. And recently, I realized that Bitcoin actually probably is much up there compared to a lot of the other cryptocurrencies. And obviously, you can see from the recent crashes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's like the other thing is not really a competitor of Bitcoin. Right? Bitcoin is a competitor with the center brand or something
Yeah.
like that. But yeah, only matter of time before people realize, right? And then, what was the aha moment when you think you have like your experience before in NFT? I mean, what was your aha moment? Oh, Bitcoin is here to stay. It's going anywhere. It's not going anywhere. I mean, like when you see that Bitcoin only.
Yeah. So when I started in 2017, there's a lot of the ICO boom, right? Then I looked at the rest. I'm like, yeah, I'm skeptical of Bitcoin. However, at the same time, the rest of the other tokens that were issued during the ICO, I think a lot of them are, well, not for whatever reasons that they mentioned. Probably they're there for other reasons, right? Just to take the funds and run. I don't know. So I didn't own any other tokens. I only held Bitcoin. But I realized I was during that time. We didn't have Lightning Network, right? I think Lightning Network only officially came out in 2018 onwards. So I was like, oh, there's nothing interesting I can do with it. So I just held on to it up until 2020, 2021, when you have the DeFi and NFT boom. Yeah. And then you realize, oh, there's a lot of interesting applications using cryptocurrencies, not Bitcoin specifically. And then I did a lot of research for a number of years until a couple of months ago, right before the merge. And then also when the Terra Luna crash right now. That was very important, a shifting moment for me to realize that, oh, probably Bitcoin is a lot better for a number of reasons. The first reason is that during the crash recently, right, you will see that in other cryptocurrencies that are Turing complete, like Ethereum and whatnot, you see that the total value lock dropped.
Yes.
Right? So it means that people are taking their money out from it. While at the same time, you see that the Bitcoins committed to the Lightning Network increasing still.
Yes.
Yes. So
So what
what
does
does
that
that
mean? I mean,
tell?
like
Yes,
the
exactly. Very
decoupling.
good.
Is it good thing or a bad thing? The decoupling of
Ve-
the two.
Very good, very good, very good. And in case you didn't know, my background is in finance. I studied finance back then, so I do know a bit of the finance and how it works, right? And then I took a deeper look into the why is that total value locked dropping while the bitcoins you imagine people should be worried, right? And then they self custody, they shouldn't put in Lightning Network because Lightning Network technically is hot in a way, right? So, but you don't see that happening. Then I looked into it and realized, oh, a lot of the money or the fiat that goes into Ethereum or all these Turing complete blockchains, right, is mostly there for speculative trading purposes. People go in there, FOMO, they want to buy, they were riding the wave
Yeah.
up, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I did a bit more research on Lightning Network, and then I realized, oh, a lot of the transactions going on in Lightning Network is actually because you can't right now, you don't have any meaningful financial instruments on top of Bitcoin. So a lot of them are using for international trade purposes, right? Of course, you know, there are stable coins in the other chain as well. But then you can also see that stable coin was increasing, right? Because people were just holding stable coins, right? To go back into the market and stuff like that. So, so you could see that, oh, Bitcoin is used a lot more for international trade, right? Compared with, say, the other Ethereum chain they're using for a lot of speculative purposes. Now, if you want to make a lot of money, you want to be rich fast, or you're okay with the roller coaster ride, by all means, you know, go to those. And in fact, there are, right? However, if you're more interested in international trade like myself, right, I've always been very curious. I started international business, right? And I've always been very curious about finding ways to improve international trade, right, in such a way whereby it's sort of limitless. Because I have a history of developing online solutions back then, many years ago, before all these online payments were, all these payment rails were properly developed. It's very difficult. You need to open bank account, and then a bank account somehow there needs to be proper regulation in the country so that those payment gateways can come in, and then, you know, like PayPal, Braintree, or Stripe can come in. So it's very difficult. And when I started trying to develop on Bitcoin Lightning Network, and then I do transactions, right, and then I realized, oh wow, it's so easy, right, compared to the payment rails, right? Of course, you still have the issue, you know, you're holding in Bitcoin, you have to then convert it, right? Of course, there is that. Then I realized, oh, probably it's actually much more useful for international trade. And then, of course, you have stable coins as well. Then a lot of people right now also use stable coins. They just sending money. I heard that like in Argentina, people have Binance account, and then they have stable coins inside. And then when they buy stuff, they just transact with each other like that using Binance.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they maybe for a country, yeah, stable coin is the way to go, you know, because the local currency is Shitcoin, and then when you hold the asset like Bitcoin, it's like you cannot buy anything because everyone cannot accept it globally, like so. Stable coin is the solution, but at the same time, it's you know, the risk of the defect, right? And USDT, even though like people say that it is not gonna implode or something, but still there is a risk right there, right? Do you think that is that the case, or is still pretty much risk out there, and you're gonna impact Bitcoin along the way, or?
I don't think so. I don't think USDT is going to have any issues or implode or anything, because I mean, although they're not very transparent, you know, and they're based in Hong Kong, they don't follow the rules as closely as USDC, for example, right? I don't think they're going to implode, right? Or that well, because I've seen the recent price fluctuations, right? They've managed worse. So far, I don't think that's the case. But of course, I'm not giving financial
we can
advice.
never, never say never, right? When you say something in the future, it happened, right? But it's okay.
So,
you can say whatever you like,
exactly. So I was you know, so I was thinking, okay, is there any way we could have stablecoin equivalent in Bitcoin, right? That's why I went back to Bitcoin, I did a lot of study, and then I realized that if your audience knows about it, you know, you have like new implementations of Taro, as in stablecoins, through, or in this case, using Taro, right? Taro is a recent project by Lightning Labs, right, whereby you could actually issue tokens or non-fungible tokens, right, or NFTs, right, on the Lightning Network. Now, that is very interesting, because this could also mean that, you know, you could have stable coins. At the same time, obviously, you can also create interesting financial instruments on top of it, and then you probably have a bit of issues like what I was not really interested in, right? Like all the speculative activities, right? Because I only stack sats and stuff like that, right?
Yes.
So Taro is very interesting. Like recently with DLC, DLC, discrete log contracts, right? It's also very interesting because you see, I don't know whether, are you aware of a Collider? Have you heard of Collider?
Collider, what is spelled again?
Collider.
Yeah.
KOLIDR.xyz.
Yeah, I know.
You know, right? Yeah. So Collider is very interesting also, because it uses you know, DLCs, right, to do you know, speculative trade on Bitcoin, okay, which is fine if you want to. However, they also use DLCs to also create stable coins, right, on Bitcoin. Technically, it's not a stable coin because it's not like a one-to-one token. They use a number of perpetual swaps and whatnot, right? These are all financial terms, right? So that you could have a stable US dollar equivalent of sats, right? So you have sats. It's actually sats at the back end or the background, but it adjusts according to the fluctuation in price. So you always have an equivalent amount of US dollar. so that when you exchange, right? So right now my buying experience when I use Lightning Network is I go to POS system, right, or someone with a QR code. I say, oh, I want to buy from you. I say, oh, they would say, oh, how many US dollars? They, oh, $1. Then I have to go and search for the price online of how many sats equivalent to $1, and then I have to. So the process is not seamless, the buying and selling process. Now with sort of like stable sats or even the Collider synthetic USD, right? With using the DLC model, you could very easily just say, oh, $1, yeah, I have my wallet, my Bitcoin wallet that has my Bitcoin and also synthetic USD using DLC, right? I could just send the $1 and I don't have to see it. I can just scan and go, right? So it's much faster, seamless experience.
Yeah,
And then
it's like the what is called again for Jack Mallor? Strike. Yeah, you use it the same way, right? When you can purchase and you can swap it right away.
Yes.
But the
exactly.
problem with the I mean, like, is the liquidity, right? And if you're not in the USDT, I think it's that's why USDT is globally accepted, because the liquidity is there. And
Correct.
I don't know how they can issue that, but maybe it's pegged one to US dollar. I don't know, because they never be transparent like you said before. But at the same time, we can never rely on the system long term, right? Because we can never I wish I'm wrong in the future that USDT not gonna implode, but we never know, right? So that's pretty much about.
Exactly.
And then the Lightning itself, the experience, I mean, like, have you ever heard of L-BTC, liquid Bitcoin, that being produced by
Liquid
Blockstream? Yeah.
Liquid Bitcoin, from Blockstream's liquid,
Is that does it work the same way, or is it a different thing?
I think Blockstream's liquid works very similar to the USDT model as a tokenized model. So basically you use their wallet. I think, what was the name of their wallet? Green, is it, or something? I forgot.
Green.
Green, right? And then you can actually transact with each other using stablecoin. So that is actually also one implementation using liquid. However, there's a lot of caveats with liquid, because if I'm not wrong, they have sort of like a number of nodes or multi-signatories that will actually sign off. So it is relatively centralized in that manner. But again, I'm not an expert in Blockstream. I only read one or two. I prefer Lightning Network than using liquid.
But at the same time, there is like rumor saying that I don't know is it true or not. You can correct me if I'm wrong. That Lightning would be as the same as liquid in terms of they can will propose a token on top of Lightning. Is that possible, or is this something that out of just fantasy or something?
No, it's possible. That's why you have Taro doing that right now. Historically, this is what we call it was also done many years ago, right? It was done on RGB or something like that, right? Done on Bitcoin. I don't know whether you heard of RGB, right? So it's sort of something like a colored coin of sorts, right? The issues with that, right, when RGB was implemented in Bitcoin, the main blockchain, right, because not on the Lightning Network, was that the first issue was because the time Taproot hasn't been implemented, so there are certain issues doing that, right? Because the moment you have that, the UTXO side, it's not it's not standardized. So probably there could be nodes that are not probably the transactions will actually go missing, right? Now with, say, for example, Taro's implementation, you need the receiver and the sender, right? Having a Taro enabled Lightning Network nodes, right? And then in between the nodes, they don't really have to be Taro enabled, so that when you send, so let's just say when I have let's just say we create our own token, right? Let's call it the Iman token, right? IMT, right? Let's say I send IMT to you. You have your node, I have my node. You just need to have it Taro enabled. I have my Taro enabled, and then although we don't have a direct channel, I can go through other channels, right? You can actually receive it, right? So that's one of the key differences that we have. Obviously, when you use implementation of tokens, right, or stable coins on top of Lightning Network, there are possibly a lot of flaws, right? I can actually share with you a number of flaws, right? So for example, one of the issue is that because you're using the UTXO model in transacting the tokens, right? Because it uses a Merkle tree. In case you didn't know, right? Is that in one UTXO entry, you can actually, there's actually a whole Merkle tree involved, and then the Merkle tree at the end of the leaves, right, is where there would be they will store, right, you know, your how much tokens you have, yeah, in IMT, how much tokens I have in IMT, if that makes sense, right? Yeah, if you're familiar with the leaf term, right? So each leaf can be considered as an account. So that's how Taro works, right? So, you know, then they compress, or they hash, right, using Merkle tree, and then they put it into the UTX. So that's roughly the idea. Now, because there could be so many users, and then the Merkle tree could be quite big, right? It's like 256 factor, right? It's that deep, right? It's quite huge, right? A lot of that that Merkle tree, I think they call it Merkle tree sparse Merkle sum, if I'm not wrong. I have to check again. A lot of this data actually have to be off-chain. Right? So this means you need to have IMT or Iman token blockchain explorer, or in this case they call it the Taro universe, right, to actually keep track of all these changes. Okay, now so this is the mechanism of how all this works, right? The pros and cons of this is, for example, as you can tell, there's already one you know, that one UTXO transaction, although you could, you know, send very little sats, right, because it's the metadata on the taproot that's more important than the sats. It doesn't matter how many sats you send through, it's the metadata on the UTXO on a taproot root, right, is actually more important, right? So there could be a situation where now that one set or that one transaction is worth millions. Let's just say, for example, Iman tokens is very popular among the Indonesians, right? And then the total market value is like billions, right? So there would be incentives for nodes or miners or whatnot to collude, right, to actually attack that one particular transaction. Absolutely. So that's one of the issues. And this was highlighted by Andreas Antonov, right? So I actually listened to one of his opinions. So that's actually a problem. That one of the many problems. The second problem, obviously, is the transaction is only as good as Lightning Network. Meaning to say, if Lightning Network hasn't resolved its liquidity and balancing issues, right? The transactions, you know, will have issues, right? I mean, you can't go through, you know, can't send through, right? Therefore, a lot of the things that you try to build on top of it will be a problem. So, for example, you want to build an exchange that does future tradings, or you want to actually have streaming or whatnot, right? There would be a bit of an issue there as well, among many other problems that you have. It sounds like you have a question.
It's like inbound liquidity, right? I mean, the problem, not really a problem, I mean, like the trade-off that Lightning have is the having the inbound liquidity. But at the same time, I just a little bit curious. I mean, like when it comes to like fiat, we know, right, how the token is being created, right? I mean, like you can deposit and collateral, and then when someone's borrow the money, that's how the money is created, right? But with Bitcoin, with the limited amount of supply and the scarcity of it, and how does that work? I mean, like if maybe like when the liquidity is not there, and then the liquidity crunch during the market crash, and the what is called Bitcoin Lightning would be like not deteriorated, what is called liquidate as well, right? I don't know. You can like share your thoughts about it.
So will it liquidate in that sense for the Bitcoin Lightning? If we use Taro as an example, right? So far we won't know because the mechanisms and hasn't come into place, and we need to know whether the token creator, right, in any way actually ties very closely with the Lightning transaction. Sometimes they might pack certain sats, right? Then that might be an issue. So one of the good things about Lightning Network is that the liquidity is actually spread across certain nodes, right? A number of nodes. It's not like in the Ethereum, they have the account-based model, not the UTXO model, account-based model, where everything is just in one smart contract. You have a hacker or whatever, right? It just liquidates and it runs off very quickly. So it might be slower with Lightning Network. However, there could also be a situation where it doesn't have to be backed by a lot of sats, if that makes sense. Remember, I talked about you could have one sat or zero sats transferring, so long as the metadata of the taproot is there, right? Which is the taproot hash.
I know, right? It's like 1-to-1, right? So there is no token creation, right? So that you can go ahead. Sorry.
So it's So whatever happens on the whatever tokens, right? It doesn't have to be stable coins. It could be whatever other tokens, but it might not affect. So they're basically using Lightning Network as sort of like a communication protocol on it, just to transfer messages, and in a way that's immutable. You can think of it like Swift, where you use Swift mostly. Swift is actually just sending messages only. It's a what is it? A conglomerate? No, or a co-op of a lot of the banks just to send messages, and then later on they use normal accounting method to a clearinghouse to actually reconcile their balances. Does that make sense? So in the case of using Taro, right, it doesn't have that issue, right? I mean, you can design it that it doesn't have that issue. So it depends on the token design, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
Yeah, because this is something that people are concerned about. Maybe this is what happens when Lightning is not familiar, and then not getting adopted compared to other shitcoin, because the risk is there, is still there, right? So, and then whatever happen in life is risky, right? You can never avoid that, right? So but you already tell about it, and that's pretty much good to know. And guys, if you want to use Lightning, please do it properly, right? So, and then well, maybe like switching topic a bit. I mean, like when was the? I mean, when the last time we met, I mean, we talk about the FediMint, right? What do you thoughts on Oracle on top of Bitcoin? I mean, like, is it like necessary, or is this something that we did to concern about as well, or I don't know.
Oracle on top of Bitcoin.
Yeah, like FediMint, like the idea of the Lloyd, the proposed that the FediMint.
Lloyd's
like
idea.
Oracle.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
because you have the technical background as well, right? With Adam. So could you like share a little bit more of what your thoughts on that? So
okay. Well, thank you for looking so highly upon me. So I think Lloyd, right? If anything, Lloyd probably has some very amazing ideas. Yeah, we're using DLC because I think he's one of the few core contributors of DLC or implementing on it. So definitely he would know a lot more than I am, and I can't speak for whatever he plans to do.
It's okay.
Nonetheless, using DLC is actually also, in case the audience didn't know, right? FediMint actually uses DLCs, right? And then they have like a federated chain or something like that. So I think DLC is actually a very good design. There's still a number of issues, like again, there's the Oracle issue, because how DLC work is, you and I have a contract, and then we have a third party coming in that would actually feed the data, right, to say, oh, whether you win the bet or I win the bet, right? So that's, I think probably that's what Lloyd is trying to do in a nutshell. And when he said this is the Ethereum killer, right? Initially I was a bit skeptical, but then I look at the implementation now. I thought this is actually very competitive. You can compete, and in fact, you don't need to just it's not only used for FediMint, the DLC, as I mentioned. You can use it for Collider, you can use it for stable sats, right? So you could do a lot of other interesting things out of it, right? Regardless of what his plans are, I think it's a very solid idea. Now, that is DLC. I think there's a lot more research, and we need to battle test it a little bit more before we identify all the weak points and upgrade it, right? And improve on it. Now, FediMint on it, and another level is, I actually, since the last time we met, I did a bit more research on FediMint. I am a bit concerned. FediMint has its reasons on why they do that. However, I'm a bit concerned with its similarity with Ethereum. Right. So what happens in FediMint is that you would have a federation of people or a social community or a community. Each of them will then issue their own token, and then within your community, you can use your own wallets and transact upon with each other, right? And then you can have another community with a separate set of tokens. They could do that as well. And then what happens if you want to swap tokens with each other, right? Then you need to have sort of like a intermediary that owns both sides of the token, and then swap. So that's roughly how it works, right? And why do you have a custody, right? Is because the creator or the founder of FediMint, I think he used to operate an exchange, if I'm not wrong. And in one of the interviews, he was asking the user, right? I said, hey, why don't you self-custody? Then the lady was very funny and said that, hey, sometimes I don't trust myself that much. I prefer to trust someone else, because in case they could. That's where he came up with the idea of creating a federation of community of people, to actually mint their own tokens and do that. So anything happen, right, you could rely on your other parties to help you recover your keys and stuff like that, right? So that's the idea of it. The challenge with that whole thing is, right, it still has some of the flaws that's very similar to Ethereum. And again, going back to Taro again, I know that you might want to move on from Taro, but Taro also has a similar problem later on when you have a different asset issued on Taro, right? And then you have to actually exchange. It will have all these issues. So that's one of the many challenges of building this. And I think Ethereum is leading the way because they will show a lot. I know some of the Bitcoiners might not like to hear this, but it's actually quite good. At least we can study from them. A lot of the hacks that you see in the bridges, right, is because of all the flaws in which they manage it. So in short, do I think that this type of innovation would have its niche and its use cases? Definitely. The good thing is that we are already seeing some of the problems happening, so the industry can actually adapt accordingly. Now, given how challenging it is to develop on the UTXO model right now on Lightning Network and Bitcoin, probably it's much better to use the other chain. And in fact, this is what Andreas actually also wanted. He's very happy that people move away from Bitcoin and Lightning Network, right? And it's to build all these things, right? It's very happy that for you to move away from this. All this Turing complete smart contract stuff, right? It's very happy that you move away all of this and then just go Ethereum or whatnot, so that you don't cause problems, right, later on into the Bitcoin, into Bitcoin. And I believe, if I'm not wrong, that's why Vitalik also created Ethereum in the first place. He actually wanted to do something on the Omni layer, and I think USDT was first issued on Omni layer. And Omni layer is sort of like a side chain of Bitcoin, right, before Lightning Network, right? And then after that, due to some challenges with the community, Vitalik just created Ethereum, right, using the account model and whatnot, and then to solve it. Now, however, there is a key difference between the implementation, right, between implementation in Ethereum and in Bitcoin. So at least I observe, right, because I did a very deep dive in Ethereum and also in Bitcoin recently, so I can actually make a bit of comparison as I understand. The thing about Ethereum is it's very developer friendly, very easy to develop. Yet at the same time, it's also very easy to make mistakes. That's why you see all these things happening, right?
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. Bitcoin is a bit harder to develop on because the whole ecosystem and there's the knowledge base and all the tutorials and whatnot is still not as mature as Ethereum, right? And then at the same time, regardless of if you were to build all this additional smart contract, or DLC or all this functionality use cases, probably functionality use cases is a much accurate word, right? You build on top of Bitcoin, I see that it will not, or build on top of Lightning Network, to be precise. Build on top of Lightning Network and the Lightning Network on top of Bitcoin, right? I see it as, even if there is a whole implosion, right? Maybe USDT come back to Lightning Network, come back to Bitcoin with Lightning, whatever, there's implosion, whatever, people will lose their money, but it will not affect the integrity of Bitcoin, given current information that I know of, right? Compared with Ethereum. As you see now, Ethereum, they have like censorship issues, government OFAC sanctions, and they're now trying to change the main chain, right? It means change the main net, right, of Ethereum, so that so that there's optionalities and whatnot, right? So the problem that I see in Ethereum is that as they build all these use cases, it will compromise the integrity of the blockchain versus Bitcoin. So this is what I think. Now, what will happen in the future, I don't know. However,
I can never know, right? You can say whatever you want.
Exactly. And however, I could see that there is a possibility that the different flavor of nodes, right? So just now we talked about you can have normal Lightning Network nodes, and then you can have Lightning Network nodes that are Taro compatible or Taro enabled, and then who knows, right? Somebody has created certain FediMint nodes or whatever, right? So you could have various Lightning Network nodes that all works on Lightning Network, but they have different interesting implementation, and we see that recently, I think with a few of the there's this guy that was creating I think multi-sig accounts, right, or something like that. And then they caused some issues, right, where the Lightning Network got stuck for a while, right? So I see that possibly in the future there will be this kind of issues, right? The argument in the community is, you need to replicate you know, you need to make sure, because they all use different programming language. That's why, right? So I think it was on Lightning Network, right? Lightning Network, and then there was another implementation of Lightning Network in a different programming language. So although it functions the same, and if you've done coding before, right, you will be able to see that there are certain nuances in the programming language, right, that will cause certain errors. And that was what happened previously, right? That's why the transaction got stuck for a while, all right? Or at least it forked for a while, something like that. So I could see that as you have different node implementation, different programming language, using different industry standards, there will be issues like that happening. And, you know, who knows, I hope we don't have another second block war or something like that just to resolve all these things.
It's inevitable.
Yeah. Exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's pretty much
Alright,
about the FediMint, yeah, guys. So shout out to Lloyd as well to have the proposal of the FediMint. So maybe, yeah, we can implement it right away in the near future. I don't know. But the real use case is there, as you said before. It's all about, you know, make it a smart contract to the Bitcoin itself, right? So. And then that's pretty much about FediMint. What you say a lot about the Taro. I mean, like it's a little bit controversial as well, right? I mean, some people say it's like, you know, that's the way to kill Bitcoin, and BIP 119 is part of them. So could you like elaborate what's the bullish case and the bearish case of the Taro?
Bullish case and bearish case of Taro. Bearish case, obviously, it would. I hope you don't have RGB fans, right? You know, bearish case would be sort of like RGB, because I actually went through the RGB website and the standards that they were trying to create and their GitHub repository. Initially I was very hyped because of the materials that they had. However, when I looked at it, I realized, oh, the maintenance of it is a bit lacking already. So that's the worst case, right? However, you have to understand that Taro is very well funded by Lightning Labs. As in the Taro, the project is by Lightning Labs, and Lightning Labs is very well funded, and they seem to be very solid, in their development, or one of the core contributors, right, to Lightning Network implementation, one of the flavors of nodes, right, that they're doing it. So I don't think they would reach to the bearish case. Nonetheless, they would have very unique use cases. Very unique use cases, that probably very niche use cases, right, that I would say is relatively censorship proof, right? And then there were people that would want to build on top of it, right? I will have to see how they how to understand more as they, you know, right now I believe they're in alpha stage. So once we move to beta and they, you know, release, right, I have to see how they plan to manage the, you know, what they call the Taro universe. Taro universe is actually a form of a blockchain explorer for the tokens that you issue on Taro, right? I have to see how that works yet. And then there are also certain stuff that is not very clear, like NFTs, you know, because NFTs are different from, because we keep talking about stable coins or just purely tokens and altcoins only, right? But we haven't talked about NFTs yet, right? So I need to also see if there are more examples on NFT implementation, although I understand it on a theoretical level now. However, I still need to see more. So then that would be the case. The thing I like about Lightning Labs is that their developer tooling is actually relatively good, right? So this is very important, because regardless of how good Bitcoin is, if the developer tooling is not as it's not easy to develop on it, right? Basically, your tooling is not easy, or the ecosystem is not very supportive of progress or changes, you might see very little improvements or update. And in fact, this might not be a bug. This might be a feature of Bitcoin. And that is perfectly fine. Totally, that is perfectly fine. And so but for guys like me, I would like to see censorship resistant or censorship proof transactions. And ideally, we could do very interesting transactions or international trade and commerce on top of those censorship resistant, censorship proof blockchains, right? In this case, I've looked everywhere. Bitcoin, I think nothing can beat Bitcoin so far. Everything else can be censored, you know, and whatnot, right? But
you said that before, Lightning Labs is very well funded. I mean, at the same time, Jack Dorsey has been, you know, proponent, not proponent. He is against VC, you know. I mean, is that the case? VC. I mean, like Bitcoin maximalists are anti-VC. I mean, like, because when the VC try to, you know, pump up the coin and they exceed the liquidity, and that's what happens with the recent contagion, right? So.
Oh, yeah. If I understand the context correctly, probably referring to a couple of months ago when Jack Dorsey was saying something about Web3 or Web5 or something like
Yeah,
that.
that's
He
why.
made a
Yeah,
joke about it, right? Yeah. Well, I guess you can see now, right, as stuff explodes, right?
yeah,
You can decide for yourself whether that's the case. But his argument, as I understand, my limited understanding, his argument is that a lot of all these tokens are funded, or or the development of this, right, are funded by. Let's just use Ethereum again as an example, right? Are funded by VCs. A lot of them are funded by VCs for the development. Then after that, the projects they issue tokens. A chunk of it is given to the VC for the funding, right? Which makes
yes,
sense. Now, obviously, the argument is that, oh, the VCs are not here to pump and dump because we have vesting, means the VC can
yeah,
only sell after a period of time, and they don't sell everything. They sell bit by bit. If they
yeah,
can only sell bit by bit. However, by then we will create a lot of use cases so that these VCs would stake it and stuff like that, right?
yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Now,
yeah,
then a lot of people argue, oh, proof of stake is actually, the rich get richer. And then all these are funded by VC, so it's not very good. It should be community led and stuff like that. Is much better. So there are cases to it, and I can see Jack's point. And given current sentiments, I can understand a lot of the people would swing towards more agreeing with Jack on this. Yeah. And I have to also I'm also similarly agree with a bit of what Jack is saying. Unfortunately, you cannot blame the community or the capitalist nature
yeah. I know.
of our, because people,
Yeah,
VCs are there to help the people who, investors of the VCs, right, to actually deploy the capital and then find avenues of giving returns to the investors, right? So that's the nature of their business. And during the boom a couple of years ago, right, 2020, 2021, a lot of very smart developers, yeah, they come up with very interesting use cases for
yeah,
EVM compatible blockchain, and then you
absolutely.
see a lot of them explode, so they have their own valid reasons for it.
Yeah, I
Mm.
know. Yeah, but I understand the point of view of Jack Dorsey, because
Mm.
the big of chunk is not distributed well. Right? That's why there is in the security, the Howey test in the security.
Yes,
So
yes,
you need to pass the Howey test in order for you to, not consider as security, right? And that's why been
yes.
problematic with Ethereum for these years. But at the same time, the coin itself is not business, right? I mean, you can only profit by selling to other people, right? So when business you generate cash flow, but in
Mm.
coin itself is not compatible with that. So I
Mm.
understand where the sea going, and at the same time, that's why you can answer me whatever you like, because it's like from your perspective, right? I mean, like, do you see like uh, the securities laws is like outdated? I mean, like, need to be updated, because at the same time, people
Ooh,
who
wow.
really like want decentralization, don't want regulation, but at the same time we need to regulate, because this is a basic human nature, right? When you have too much chunks,
Yeah.
you can drive it right away, right? It's just your opinion, I know
Yeah,
you
yeah, yeah.
not under
Yeah.
background in law, so yeah, you can
Yeah,
share
yeah,
what
yeah.
yeah.
I know. This is the same thing that I always have discussion with some of my lawyer friends who are also in crypto, right? So they're in crypto regulations, they know a lot more. I think we definitely need a lot more regulation and oversight. And if you follow the news, it's very surprising. Sometimes you see the connection between FTX and SEC. At least that's what was claimed, right? I don't know whether it's true or not. At least they see the connection between there. And then you're wondering what is really happening behind the background. Yeah. Nonetheless, we still need actually good regulations, for the industry to actually grow forward in this case. Or else, you have developers that would be very concerned, right? Like some of the developers that, like the Tornado Cash developer, he was just
Like the cash.
releasing code because of, and then now he is
Going to jail, yeah.
in custody in jail right now. Yeah, and of course there are both sides of the argument, right? I think I read the defense and the prosecutors' points of the argument about him. No, he's just writing code only about others. So you can make it up. You can decide on what you think about it in terms of regulation. So that's why I sincerely believe that it's something that we cannot run away from. What do I mean by this, right? Is that if you plan to use Bitcoin, or in this case, blockchain, right, a lot on your traditional finance stuff. So again, if let's just say you want to have, you want to connect to the real world, if you want to connect to the real world, right, it is unavoidable to have some form of regulations from the jurisdiction that you're in. Yeah, if you're Indonesian, you might have to follow Indonesian jurisdiction. If you're US, you might have to follow US jurisdiction. It's unavoidable because you're living in that country and you're living in that jurisdiction, and you want to live in that environment. You would have to probably accept their laws, or else you have to move away to another jurisdiction or regulation that you are more okay with, or they are more okay with your approach in transactions or belief, right? So that's why you see certain situations where like in the case in certain, like if you and I were to do Bitcoin transaction only, it's generally very difficult for it to be prevented by the government, right? We use unless they bring down the internet and whatnot, right? Of course, there are other ways around that. They use ham radio or whatever. That's their way of doing it.
Yes.
But that's But the moment you want to touch back, say Indonesian rupiah or even Malaysian ringgit, then you have to follow the regulations. They need to ask you. Yeah. So that's actually one of the bigger challenges or philosophical challenges that you will have as well. Yeah, in this. So I think it's unavoidable that you need regulation.
Yeah, because the token distribution is like, people say that Bitcoin is too late to get Bitcoin because, but at the same time, Bitcoin itself is much in terms of like decentralization supply is well distributed, right? You cannot like have 70% that pre-mine or something. So this is a people that to be aware of as well, because we can never know, right? I mean, like Ethereum implode or something, and then goes to zero right away because they have so much supply. So this is why I'm always preaching about, so
sorry, no, to add on to that, the regulation not only come into the pre-mine aspect, not only come into the Howey test or whether you're whether you're a security or not. Not only that, but also other things like know your customer, actually know who is the person doing the transaction.
KYC,
or anti-money, KYC, AML, right, anti-money laundering rules and regulation. So those are bread and butter of the traditional finance. And there are recently, I don't know whether you read the news of JP Morgan doing a DeFi transaction, right, on Polygon. That is very interesting because they managed to use Web3, or in this case, a lot of the smart contracts, right, in a way to actually able to do a transaction that complies with traditional finance regulation like KYC and AML, while at the same time the transaction happens on DeFi, in this case on Ethereum. So that is actually a very interesting implementation. And I see in the future there will not be this thing called DeFi or traditional finance. It's just called finance because it just makes more sense to use this approach.
They bridge the Web 2 and Web 3, right? But I understand the point of view. The regulation is needed in order for people, not to get wrecked. But at the same time, have you ever heard like proof of reserve lately that been proposed by like CEO of Kraken? And he is like, big proponent of transparency. Like I know CZ like already published and exposed about the proof of reserve, but proof of reserve is not enough, right? You need to proof of audit, proof of liabilities, and proof of solvency as well, right? And you have like Merkle 3 audit, so blockchain can verify whether your asset is valid or not within the exchange, right? So it is average as well. I mean, like but you said that before, like KYC is inevitable. I understand point of view. But at the same time, when it comes to like Merkle 3 audit, you can never audit like I mean like you can never avoid like KYC, right? The government or maybe the Asians can verify your asset and do the forensic, and then yeah, it's just something like that, right? You understand what I mean, the pros and cons, right? What are your thoughts on that? So
What are my thoughts on that? So going back to the proof of reserve, I think that's a very good initiative from the CEO, the ex-CEO of Kraken. I don't think he's a CEO now, right? Yeah. So that is actually something I believe he was the first one that actually coined the term. Is that correct?
yeah, it's like CEO Kraken, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
Yeah, correct. And it's not perfect, by the way. He knows
Yeah.
that. Nonetheless, it's like an improvement. Similarly, when you look at Bitcoin, as a peer-to-peer money transaction, it's not perfect. It's an improvement, right? You look at Ethereum with whatever it's doing, it's not perfect. It's an improvement. So instead of seeing it as 100% transparency of the exchange, the centralized exchanges, you could see it versus there's no transparency at all. Sometimes it's not very helpful to actually just take one side of the other. You have to imagine it as a spectrum, right? As a spectrum, sort of like a spectrum of colors. We can slowly nudge towards transparency, and that nudging is sufficient. That is why what's happening in proof of reserve, although not perfect, yeah. Because for example, one of the things that's not perfect is, for example, they could actually loan money, right, or loan the cryptocurrencies, and then they could prove that I have this reserve.
Yeah,
Right.
I
Then
know.
after they prove it, then they go away, right? Or then you could say, oh no, why don't they give proof of reserve snapshot every periodically, right?
Yeah.
So how frequent is reasonable, for you to run the business. And then they cannot just declare it themselves, right? Why? Because they would need an auditor to do it. And then you need to find a reputable auditor. And then it's not cheap to actually pay a auditor to always audit the accounts again and again, because if you've done auditing, for the auditor who've done auditing, that it's not very simple and straightforward, right? Nonetheless, it's a step forward. They have to safeguard our life savings or our investments, right, in this. So that proof of reserve, it has been around for some time, and I think that's actually a very good and prudent move forward. There are obviously a lot of ways of implementing it. Yeah. So that's what I think about why regulations is still here, because I actually did talk to a number of people that are very intelligent, very smart, yeah, and they don't have time to look into all this, right? That's why they need an entity to protect against themselves, right? I was like, why don't you own it? They say, yeah, I don't know enough, or I just buy Bitcoin right now, it's very low, but later I'm gonna sell it. Why don't you hold it? What about all this ethos and all this belief? To them, they're like, oh, I'm just too busy taking care of my children. I have to take care of
Absolutely.
So
Yeah. Generational
life
wealth.
happens. Yeah, life happens, and life happens, and people can't spend too much time on these things. Although you could do self-custody, even I myself, I don't actually operate a Lightning Network node because although I wanted to, but I didn't do it because I realized that the effort it takes, and then I do
It's
travel a
time
lot,
consuming,
right?
right? Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And sometimes keeping up with the news, reading all these technical documents, and it's very takes a lot of time as well, and so I can imagine it being very difficult. That's why it makes sense that there would be a party that would be an expert in this, or in this case, or a guardian, or like government, that people are very well incentivized to have that, to actually take care of us, right, on certain aspects of our lives, or rule of law, to be precise. If you do a rule of law, right, it's very difficult for you to live your life, right? Yeah, because you don't trust anybody, you have to verify, right? Just like by virtue of us taking every day of our life, we trust that our infrastructure wouldn't collapse. We trust that if there's anything happen, when you're driving your car or whatnot, you can claim insurance. Without that trust, it's actually very difficult to operate in this civilization. Yeah, basically.
Yeah, because completely trustless society is like chaos. You cannot complete trustless. So yeah, I understand your
Correct.
point of view, but
Correct.
yeah, I will I still kind of pity for the people who lost a lot of money in the FTX. Sorry for that. If you guys still use
very
the
bad.
exchange, Bitcoin Maxi told you very well, right? I mean, not your keys, not your coin. So please protect yourself. But if you know the risk, go ahead. But if you don't, please self custody is number one, right? So
Yeah, self-custody, definitely. Especially this time, please do self-custody if you haven't already. Even if you use not a hardware wallet, right? Just a self-custody wallet, at least it's better than nothing. Yeah, put it, download it, and please move it out if you haven't already.
Yeah, absolutely. And then yeah, because it's already 1 hour already, I need to wrap this up. Before I wrap this up, I mean, it's just for fun, no financial advice. Do you have any specific Bitcoin target or maybe 100K, 200K, maybe for the next 2 years lah? I mean, after halving, yeah, yeah.
Very
After
interesting.
halving,
Very
yeah.
interesting.
Just for fun, just for fun. Yeah.
Very interesting. Who was it? I think is it. If you guys haven't heard, probably you can listen to Bob Lucas. Do you listen to Bob Lucas?
Yeah.
Yeah, Bob Lucas recently he released a video or the second video ago. He would say probably we would have a early, according to him, right? I don't know. We probably
Yeah, we
according
can
to
never
his
know
charts,
lah.
right? We
Yeah,
would have
it
an
just
early one. We would have an early one next year, right? Not next year, up until and next year, and then you could ride all the way to $100,000+, right? And I don't think he is too far off because you look at because one of the Bitcoin is denominated in US dollar. So how you want to see if Bitcoin performs, you have to look at US dollar. You have to look at the DXY index or the US dollar index, right? And then you see how it drops, right? If your US dollar index rises, chances are it's very hard for Bitcoin to to have all-time highs, right? Unless it goes back down, right? So if US dollar index goes back down, then you can see Bitcoin starting to rally. And what would
inverse
affect it,
correlated,
right?
Yeah.
Inverse correlated, right? So you could see that the US dollar is affected by the interest rate regime by the Fed and whatnot, and then it is affected by whether there's a recession in the US or not right now, or whether the inflation drops, right? Either the recession comes first or the inflation in US
Yeah, we
drops
can never know,
first.
right? Yeah.
Yeah,
You have
we'll never
target, I
know.
mean, like just for fun, yeah.
I mean, target price.
Yeah, I mean, like maybe
Right?
after the
Yeah.
halving, post halving, yeah, just for fun. Yeah, not tomorrow, yeah, just for fun, yeah.
Yeah, I think it could easily go above 100,000+. Yeah, but for those of you out there, I think right now you should be more concerned with making sure that you're a valued employee in your company, so that you don't get let go, right? And then you have enough savings in case anything happens. Probably having cash right now is more important, because next year is going to be tough for developed countries. I don't know about Indonesia. I don't think Indonesia will be that badly affected, because Indonesia seems to be what is it? You're sort of like an exporting commodity-rich country, right? And I'd imagine all these developing nations that they would actually require a lot of resources from Indonesia. So I don't think your Indonesian audiences would not be affected that much. Maybe the tech sector will be affected a little bit.
Yeah.
It depends on how it is. So probably that's more important to focus on right now.
Yeah, because there's just recently happened tech layoff in Indonesia, but this is what happens when
there is a
there's
layoff,
right? Yeah, because
huge tech layoff,
the VC the VC invested a lot in the tech, and VC got no liquidity because the Fed rising the interest rate, right? So we can it's like common sense lah. So that's very much about it. And maybe before this one is just you can share maybe like the highlights. I mean, you just went through the like election, right? What is it? I mean, like, is pro Bitcoin or not?
I went through a lecture. Sorry, what do you mean?
Election, Malaysia.
Election.
Yeah.
Am I pro? Do I think the government is pro Bitcoin? You mean?
Yeah. But the current, the nominated.
Oh, okay. I wouldn't know yet. I think Malaysia, I don't think that would be on the cards. I think they're more interested in improving the Malaysian economy right now. I think that would be the first priority for them. I think they would do that.
Is that same as
Malaysian regulation has always been very relatively sensible, especially when it comes to our regulation for finance, fintech, right? And in this case, crypto is probably under fintech. Under securities commissions and bank negara whatnot, has been relatively sensible. And recently, the tax department also in Malaysia also came out with a guidance for your crypto earnings, right? How would you declare whether it's a taxable income or not? Relatively sensible. Not perfect, always room for improvement, but relatively sensible. It's I think the international scene has a bigger effect than we do.
Yeah, because if the politician pro Bitcoin, maybe they will follow El Salvador in terms of like Bitcoin, as a legal tender. Right? But I don't see that happening. I know,
No.
I know
Yeah,
it's
El
not too
Salvador.
far away, but we can,
El Salvador.
yeah.
El Salvador, they historically don't have their own currency. They use US dollars. That's why they have an incentive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Malaysia has a very strong
Yeah, and
economy
they
and
don't
a very
want to
stable.
lose control as well, right? So
Yeah,
yeah, we can have a politician.
obviously,
Yeah.
obviously,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Okay, that's pretty much about it today. Thank you, Shen, for your
Thank
time.
you,
It's been an
man.
honor to be
Thank you
here.
for your
Guys,
time.
if you're
Thank you.
interested about Shen, I will share the link description. And leave a like and subscribe to our channel. Yeah.